Welcome to another video from Demystifying Proposals. In this video, we're going to talk about how the government buys, the various ways government contractors can market and win business with the U.S. federal government. The following are some basic vocabulary that you need to know in order to do business development at federal government contractors. An RFI, or request for information, is part of how the government does market research. Usually, the RFI asks for government contractors' reactions to how the government intends to procure the work, or the statement of work, or the performance work statement. A sources sought notice is similar to an RFI. It's also part of how the government does market research, but it's usually used to identify if there are enough small businesses who can do the work to justify making the RFP a small business set aside. An RFP, or request for proposal, is what the government issues when they want to engage government contractors to do the work. Maybe it may be used for services, or it may be used for IT bids. An RFQ, or request for quote, usually is used for product bids, where the government is just trying to buy something, quote, off the shelf, like software or equipment. An unrestricted procurement means that any government contractor can bid, though it's usually intended for large or mid-tier companies to bid. A small business set-aside means only small businesses can bid. Sometimes these are restricted to a particular type of small business. We'll talk about that on the next slide. On this slide, we talk about various small business types. Small businesses that can bid on the small business set-asides we talked about on the previous slide. Small businesses are set by their NAICS codes. NAICS codes means North American Industry Classification System, which is the government's way of classifying various industries. If you need more information about NAICS codes, you should look on the SBA website. There's a lot of information there. An 8A company is under the 8A program, which is a robust 9-year program created to help firms owned and controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. The government sets aside about 5% of procurements for these companies. Small disadvantaged businesses, which is about 10% of all federal contracting dollars, or roughly $50 billion in contracts, means that the firm must be 51% owned and controlled by one of those disadvantaged people. The disadvantaged person or persons must be socially disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged. Women-owned small businesses and economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses are generally offered about 5% of federal contracts. That is, those are contracts that are set aside for women-owned small businesses or economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. These businesses must be at least 51% owned and controlled by women who are U.S. citizens. They must have women manage day-to-day operations who also make long-term decisions. Veteran-owned small businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses must be at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more veteran or service-disabled veteran in the case of service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. They must have one or more veteran managing day-to-day operations who make the long-term decisions. Eligible veterans must have a service-connected disability to qualify as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Historically underutilized business zones, or hub zones as most people call them, get about 3% of federal contracts set aside for them. They must be at least 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens, a community development corporation, an agricultural cooperative, an Alaska Native corporation, a Native Hawaiian organization, or an Indian tribe. They must have their principal offices located in a hub zone, that is, a historically underutilized business zone. And about 35% of their employees have to live in a hub zone as well. That makes them a challenging small business to develop. Next, we're going to talk about how the government buys. There are GWACs, IDIQs, and task order proposals. We're going to talk about each of those. Government contracting vehicle types. There are various vehicles that enable the government departments and agencies to limit competition. Think of them as a pre-award competition. Only companies who have won a seat on a vehicle can submit proposals for the RFPs that come out under that vehicle. In contrast, full and open procurements means that the procurement is open to all government contractors, large and small. This, as you can imagine, often creates a lot of competition. So agencies and government departments prefer to use GWACs and IDIQs and BPAs that limit the competition to a select group of government contractors. GWACs, or government-wide acquisition contracts, can be used by any department and any agency across the federal government. There's often a fee for using them that the procurer pays, the organization putting out the RFP. An example of a GWAC is OASIS. It's a very common vehicle used across the federal government. OASIS stands for One Acquisition Solution for Integrated Services. This is a GWAC that was put out by the General Services Administration. It is not intended to be used for IT services, however, and it will be sunsetted in 2025. The replacement for OASIS is called OASIS Plus. OASIS Plus proposals have been submitted and awards are expected in third quarter of 2024 and fourth quarter of 2024. As I said, it's the follow-on to the OASIS vehicle. Alliant is currently active. Alliant 2 is currently active. Alliant 3 RFP is expected in sometime in 2024. There is a draft RFP currently out, and many companies are preparing for their Alliant 3 procurement. Alliant, unlike OASIS, is generally for IT services. So the companies that bid on Alliant may also be on OASIS or OASIS Plus, but many companies that are on OASIS or OASIS Plus may not be on Alliant because they may not have enough IT work to qualify them for Alliant. Another IT-oriented GWAC is the Chief Information Officer Solutions and Partners GWAC, or CIOSP as we call it. CIOSP 3 is currently active. CIOSP 4 is currently under protest, but we are hoping that it will become active later in 2024. Another GWAC is the NASA SOUP. SOUP stands for Solutions for Enterprise-Wide Procurement. The current SOUP procurement is SOUP 5. However, SOUP 6 has come out and is expected to be awarded later in 2024. In addition to GWACs, there are things called IDIQs. IDIQs are usually at the department or agency level. And IDIQ stands for Indefinite Delivery, Indefinite Quantity. So they are open in terms of the kinds of work that can be procured under them. They can be single award, which means that only one contractor gets the work under the vehicle, or they can be multiple award, which means that there are several government contractors who are available to bid on that IDIQ. An example of this is the Department of Energy Energy Saving Performance Contract, or ESPC. Another example of an IDIQ is the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services Strategic Partners Acquisition Readiness Contract, or CMS Spark. These are both examples of a IDIQ at the department level. Then there are also blanket purchase agreements, or BPAs. BPAs have finite budgets, and are often used to buy limited services or products, which are predefined when the procurement is let out. An agency must define the budget, and once the budget is used, the agency can no longer purchase using that BPA. This contrasts them with IDIQs, which are often defined but broadly, more broadly than a BPA, and the budget, the ceiling can be raised on an IDIQ. So they can, if they are still actively using that IDIQ, but they've put out enough procurements that they've overrun their budget, they can add to their budget if they need to. So those are the different kinds of government contracting vehicles. Because as I said, most agencies and departments prefer to use vehicles. Most proposals that government contractors do are task order proposals. So those are RFPs that are issued under either a GWAC or an IDIQ, but only the companies that have gotten an award under that GWAC or IDIQ can bid on the task order proposal that's been issued under that GWAC or IDIQ. That often means that the number of companies bidding will be limited to 3 to 5 companies, particularly for IDIQs. They're often limited to 3 to 5 companies. Task order proposals are also often very page limited. Offers can submit only a set number of pages for the whole proposal or for each section of the proposal. Task order proposals are often also a quick turnaround. Usually that's about 30 days or 4 weeks, but sometimes the timelines are even shorter. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you learned something, please hit the thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you for your time.